right, so welcome everybody to our Virginia 5 Levers Organizing Workshop. Please locate a pen and a pencil. And hey, John, can you see if you can disable the little dinging sound for us? There might be a way to do that. For taking notes, pen and pencil, paper for taking notes. Let's be patient with each other as we muddle through Zoom. Sometimes our technology flows smoothly and sometimes it doesn't. So we extend grace and space to each other for our obstacles and our snafus. So first of all, I am curious, what do you want to get out of the workshop? Now, I imagine that you want to work more cohesively as a state and would like the tools to do so. You might want to figure out how you can best match your skills and talents to specific tasks or projects within the state or in your chapter. I know you want to pass the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act as soon as possible. So if any of these resonate with you, then you are in the right Zoom call this beautiful Saturday morning. Are there other things that you would like to get out of today's training? Please type those into the chat. So you'll find the chat along the bar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. It's kind of a dark gray. And if you, it's right there in the middle, and it's a little bubble, like a little cartoon talking bubble. So click on that and go in the chat and let me know, what do you want to get out of today's training? So Rita says, how to get those who have joined more active. Oh, beautiful. Definitely we'll cover that. Katie says, tips on how to get more actively involved. Total beginner. Welcome. I'm so glad this is your beginner here. Same here. Same here. Kate says, oh, terrific. So wonderful to have new folks. More ideas for a chapter, says Sarah. Same here, says Elizabeth as well. Welcome to everybody who's new. This is so wonderful. I think you're going to get a lot out of today's workshop. It's definitely a perfect entree place for new folks. Emily is glad to see new people. Greg in Lynchburg is glad to be here. How to connect during the pandemic. Ellie, wonderful. Definitely we'll look in that. John says, how to ask at town halls. Oh, that's great. That is definitely, that's like a Grasstops kind of question. Maybe Grassroots kind of lobbying. It falls everywhere as far as the 5 levers go. What else do people want to get? Steph says, I'm also a beginner in Charlottesville, but husband runs the Apex Clean Energy Hill. Oh, wonderful. Welcome. Glad you're here. Utility scale, wind and solar. I've heard about Apex. General awareness of all activities, says Steve in Lynchburg. Wonderful. Anybody else want to add anything to the chat? What you want to get out of today's workshop is the question for the chat right now. Very good. Well, feel free to, new ideas for connecting with other organizations, scheduling presentations. Perfect. All right. Very good. We'll keep popping those in the chat. Trying to learn to talk to climate deniers. Oh, yes. That's wonderful. Whew, that is listening for values. I'll give you a little tip there. All right. Good. Okay. Feel free to keep putting those in. I want to just celebrate Virginia a bit. My hometown state, I live in Keysville, Virginia. Just a few pictures from the state. Virginia Beach, all the way from the beach up to the mountains, Luray Caverns, Carytown, got to stop by Richmond, Williamsburg, Shenandoah National Park.
Hey, Ellie, Virginia has other amazing things too.
Well, like what, Stephanie?
I'm excited to tell you. So Virginia has amazing climate advocates. Leaders like Congressman Jerry Connolly are pushing forward bold climate policies in Congress, and we are so excited that he is a co-sponsor on the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And his colleagues in Virginia are also doing some great work. Just to give you some highlights, Abigail Spanberger is promoting climate-friendly farming and forestry practices. Denver Riggleman is a member of the House Climate Solutions Caucus. My own congressman, Don Beyer, is a champion for carbon pricing and carbon dividend policies. Don McEachin is a leading sponsor on clean energy and environmental justice bills in Congress. And finally, Morgan Griffith is a co-sponsor on the Reclaim Act, which would help restore the environment and communities affected by mining. We also have a growing number of CCL volunteers and 12 chapters across Virginia. We're all working together to build political will for effective bipartisan climate solutions like the Energy Innovation Act.
Yeah, that's right. And what have these volunteers been doing?
Well, look at how much we accomplished last year. We had over 90 outreach events, nearly 50 lobby meetings, tons of opinion pieces published in newspapers, and so much more.
This is such great work, Stephanie. And don't forget about your endorsers.
I'm glad you mentioned endorsers, Ellie. We are so proud of the endorsements we've secured for the Energy Innovation Act. Conservative and progressive environmental organizations, businesses, elected officials, the city of Blacksburg, and the Democratic Party of Virginia have all endorsed HR 763.
Nice work, Virginia CCL. Now let's introduce the presentation team. First, John Clark is our breakout room coordinator, and you know John as your regional coordinator. So John, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I am the regional coordinator for Appalachia, a newly created Appalachia region, which consists of Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, where I'm from, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Amish country. And I just retired from the post office as a letter carrier, and now I'm full-time with CCL, so I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you. Chris Wiegart is one of our state coordinators. So Chris, would you pop in and introduce yourself? Just be sure to unmute.
I am in the Richmond chapter. By trade, I'm a librarian still. I'm a new grandpa, which means a lot to me in our efforts. And I love to write letters to the editor.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. I really enjoy working with you. Bishop Dansby, also a state coordinator. So Bishop, if you could unmute yourself and give us a quick introduction, that'd be great.
Hello. Am I there?
You are here. Go right ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, lawyer, engineer, trumpet player. I was looking at Marty LaCory, the great runner, and our lives have tracked each other. He's now playing jazz down in Gainesville. And he also, unfortunately, has a chronic CLL condition that I have, but we won't go into that. Anyway, it's nice to know that I'm following the great runner, Marty LaCory. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Bishop. I remember I met Bishop when we started the Harrisonburg chapter. And Stephanie Burns, co-facilitating with me today and also state coordinator. So Steph, would you introduce?
Hi, I'm really excited to be with you all today. So I'm Stephanie Burns, and I also help lead the Alexandria chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. When I'm not volunteering for Citizens Climate Lobby, I'm working as a research consultant. I do market forecasting work. I am an alum of the University of Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, and I'm also a new Instagram user. Feel free to follow me. I will follow you back. My name is stephanie.d.burns. So look forward to seeing you on Instagram.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm Ellie Sparks, Director of Field Development, and a decade ago, I started the first chapter in Virginia. I joined up as staff 5 years ago. I farm regeneratively on 80 acres that my aunt owns in South Central Virginia, so Keysville, south of Farmville. And I am also a grandmother, and I would love to show you pictures of 18-month-old Isabel. So Stephanie, would you please introduce the Levers team for us?
Yes. So this is our Levers team. So my fellow state coordinator, Chris Wiegard, is a master at writing opinion pieces for newspapers. He will be facilitating the media lever. Ingrid Mans is CCL's liaison to Congressman Morgan Griffith, and she also co-leads the New River Valley chapter. We're excited to have her facilitate the lobbying lever. Sarah Karish co-leads the Fairfax County chapter, and she has helped CCL launch several new chapters over the years. So she is the perfect person to facilitate the group development lever. Emily Irvine co-leads the Charlottesville chapter, which has done fantastic outreach in their community. So we're lucky to have her facilitate the Grassroots lever, and her fellow Charlottesville volunteer, Nan Halpern, will also be helping Emily with that as well. Pete Greider is a superstar volunteer in the New River Valley chapter, and he's gone above and beyond to reach out to businesses in the Blacksburg area. So we're delighted to have him facilitate the Grasstops lever today. And to introduce ourselves, let's find out where everyone lives. Please add your name to the end of your, please add your city to the end of your name. We'll modify names again later in the workshop, so let's all figure this out now. For example, Ellie will change her name to Ellie Sparks, Keysville. So let's all take a moment to help everyone figure this out, because later in the workshop, we'll modify our names again.
Awesome. So the way to do that, you can pop open the participants list, which is right there next to the chat, and you'll see everybody listed. Where you find your name, it's alphabetical order by your first name, and you hover your little mouse over your name and you'll see a blue button to the right that says more. If you click on more, one of those options is to rename. Good, I see people getting some renaming done. Another way to do it is to find your picture in the little tiles, the little video tiles. Find your video, hover your mouse over your video tile, and again, a little blue box pops up with 3 little dots, which means more, and that's how you can rename there. Good. Oh, seeing some good. Somebody's called computer. Don't know who that is.
We have 2 phone numbers, Ellie.
Okay, good. Let's get those. Can you read out the phone numbers, and we'll, if you're on the phone, unmute, and when you hear your phone number, tell us your name, and we will rename you.
505-235-3197.
Who is that? Can you unmute your *6 to unmute if you're that phone number?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Molly Harmon. I'm in Arlington.
Awesome, Molly. All right, so Nan's going to rename you Molly Harmon in Arlington. And
Hold
then,
on. Wait a minute.
Okay, go ahead. Take your time.
Can't talk and type. And we've got 919-740-8700.
All right, who's that? You can unmute with *6 to unmute. If you're on the phone, that 919 number.
740-8700.
Okay.
Oh, all right. I think I got it now.
Yes.
This is Eric Fessler from Falls Church.
Hi, Eric. How do you spell your last name?
F is in Frank, E-S-S-L-E-R.
Okay, and you're from?
Falls Church, Virginia.
Got it. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Awesome. Catherine says she's having a hard time hearing, so I'm going to say try, Catherine, increasing your volume on your computer. I have a little, on my computer, I can see in the little, above the numbers on my keyboard, there's one that looks like a speaker that has more echoes coming out, and one that's like a speaker that has fewer echoes. It's over on the right-hand side. I have a MacBook, so I don't know if you have that, but look for somewhere on your keyboard to increase your volume. Often it also can pop up at the bottom.
For some reason, you know, I've been doing that, but I appreciate the suggestion. For some reason, it just doesn't ever get very loud.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I just if I put my head right next to where the sound comes out, I can hear, but I'm missing a lot that way.
Oh no, sometimes earphones work as well. If you have earbuds you can plug into your computer, that might be an improvement. All right.
For some reason I couldn't get it to come up on my iPad, so I'm using a different computer. So that has something to do with it. It's not, I don't think it's anything you all are doing, but I just wanted you to know sometimes I can't hear you.
Okay. Well, hopefully that'll settle out.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so let's see. Steph, shall Shall we move forward?
I think we're ready to move forward with the workshop.
Awesome, very good. Okay, so little history here. By the time of the very first Third Coast Conference in 2013, our Texas volunteers had been meeting regularly with their members of Congress for several years. Our Texas volunteers felt frustrated because not one of the members of Congress was willing to budge from their position on climate. It seemed to our volunteers, many of whom were engineers, like a lever was stuck. So they decided that if one lever seemed stuck, then they might pull on some other levers to get movement in Texas. So our volunteers reviewed the various activities in play already. So things like writing letters to the editor, tabling at community events, giving talks at clubs and faith groups, holding monthly chapter meetings, and organized these activities into 5 categories they dubbed the 5 levers of political will. So head back to the chat now, using the chat, see if you can name as many of the levers as you can, and none of my levers team gets to play in this game. So everybody else, what are the 5 levers? See if you can name 1 or 2 or all of them in the chat. So head back over there to the chat with that little bubble. Lobbying, woo, Grasstops. Groups, yep, close. Media, lots of media focused. Good. Groups, grassroots, lobbying, grassroots, Grasstops, group media. Cindy, woo! Good job, everybody. Very nice, you got it. All right, so today we will consider how these levers interface with each other and why we need teamwork to get the job done. Before we do that, let's remember CCL's origin and review the bill we support. So many of you know Marshall Saunders, our founder. His DNA runs deeply through the organization. Marshall died this past winter in between Christmas and New Year's. So since I cannot introduce you to him, I'll tell you a little bit about him. Marshall was a businessman who, like all of us, has something in particular that inspired his action on climate. He had devoted his time, talent, and treasure to specific programs designed to help poor people launch small businesses. When Marshall first learned about climate change, he recognized that global warming was already threatening poor people and undermining the efforts that he, and so many others had put into helping people rise from poverty. So he decided that if he was serious about solutions to poverty, he needed to become serious about solving the climate crisis as well. As a result, 13 years ago, he started Citizens Climate Lobby with 3 groups in San Diego. Today, we have 593 chapters all over the world, with 479 of those in the US, and we are covering 92% of US congressional districts. Now, in his volunteering to address poverty, Marshall joined up with a group that had developed a specific approach to organizing citizens to empower Congress to take action. Marshall took that proven methodology and applied it to climate solutions. That group's name is Results. We've expanded on that methodology with the 5 levers, which we will explore in the workshop. First, Stephanie and I are going to review the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And Stephanie, would you get us started, please?
Thanks, Ellie. So late in 2018, both the House and the Senate introduced the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act with both Republican and Democratic sponsors. The bill in the lame duck session of the last Congress was a great step forward, but obviously it wasn't going to go anywhere during that session. So then the House reintroduced the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act just 3 weeks into the new Congress on January 24th, 2019. The bill number is HR 763. CCL Vice President of Government Affairs, Dr. Danny Richter, still describes this bill as in play. It is currently in 3 committees where it is waiting for hearings. Next, it will be voted out of committee and eventually come to the House floor for a vote. So why do we like the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act? First of all, it would be very effective. It would cut our country's emissions by 40% within 12 years, which is leaps and bounds beyond the effectiveness of any current greenhouse gas regulation. And I just want to emphasize that these are all energy-related emissions, not just the power sector. A broad range of economists and scientists support the act because it is simple, comprehensive, and effective. In addition to protecting against climate change, the Energy Innovation Act is good for people. The policy improves health and saves lives by reducing pollution that Americans breathe. Over 100,000 Americans die prematurely every year because of pollution. Communities of color and lower income communities are disproportionately harmed by this problem because they are more likely to live near these sources of pollution, especially power plants that burn coal. So by cutting emissions, the Energy Innovation Act would save lives, especially in the most vulnerable communities in our country. And here's another reason why the policy is good for people. The carbon dividend would put money directly into people's pockets every month to spend as they see fit, which would especially help low and middle income families. 10 years into the policy, we estimate that a family of 4 would receive about $4,400 per year in dividends. The Energy Innovation Act would also be good for the economy. This bill would create over 2 million jobs right here in the United States over the next decade. These new jobs will be in clean energy, healthcare, construction, education, information technology, retail, and countless other fields. So Ellie, would you please tell us how this bill would accomplish all of this?
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. The Energy Innovation Act uses a carbon fee and dividend approach, which works like a three-legged stool. First, we place a steadily rising price on carbon. We assess the fee upstream on fossil fuel companies directly to keep administrative costs low. The fee starts at $15 per ton of CO2 and increases annually by $10 per ton, indexed to inflation. Second, the bill ensures that 100% of the net revenue collected from this fee gets allocated equally to households. The third leg levels the global playing field with a border carbon adjustment on goods coming from countries without a similar price on carbon. Now, the co-sponsors of the bill included a regulatory pause. Let's consider their thinking on that. Currently, a small number of laws regulate greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, many of those laws are tied up in courts, unable to function. The Energy Innovation Act outperforms those current greenhouse gas regulations. With that reality in mind, the bill's co-sponsors included a regulatory pause that goes like this. The Clean Air Act and CAFE standards for cars stay in full force. The pause covers any new regulation on greenhouse gases. The bill sets interim targets for emission reductions. After 5 years, if annual reductions fall short of the specified targets in the bill, the fee automatically increases by $15 instead of $10 per ton that year. After 10 years, if we do not meet or exceed our climate goals, even with the higher rate of increase, the bill requires the EPA to regulate greenhouse gas emissions so that we can meet our climate goals. Bipartisan collaboration created this regulatory pause. Democrats agree to a pause, allowing the act to prove itself. Republicans agree to regulate if the act falls short of its climate goals. Both Republicans and Democrats want to solve the climate crisis, and they are being respectful of the other group's core values with this elegant solution. So Stephanie, will you tell us about the 2 exemptions in the bill?
Sure, thanks, Ellie. So making a political judgment call, the bill's co-sponsors added 2 exemptions. So fuels used by the agricultural sector and fuels used by the military would not be covered by the carbon fee. Just realistically, both of these sectors are not very responsive to changes in fuel prices, so our country will need to find other ways to cut emissions in these sectors. And just to put this in perspective, these particular fuel exemptions affect just 2% of US greenhouse gas emissions. So these exemptions would not stop the policy from hitting really ambitious emission reduction targets. So let's practice.
All right. So welcome back. We are sure that some questions came up for you in the breakout room. So we're going to take 10 minutes to answer questions. We're going to use a timer and the chat. So you can put your questions in the chat. We've got the timer going. So circle over to the chat. You're also welcome to simply unmute and ask your question. And we will get to as many as we can. So what questions came up for you as far as the bill goes? Oh, there we go. Now we're getting some. Oh, we weren't able to connect with Nikki. So I'm not quite sure what that means. Maybe you're in the breakout room. Sometimes that happens. Somebody doesn't make their way to the breakout room. So what questions do you have about the bill? You can raise your hand, or how will it be administered? Well, pieces of it would be taken care of perhaps within the IRS, I believe, in how if you're a fossil fuel company and you're reporting in your numbers of the volume of the fossil fuel you've sold, there would be an easy way there to track the carbon dioxide that gets emitted when the fuel is burned. That's a simple formula on that end. And then there are systems that already get money out to people as far as the IRS, if you're paying taxes, or Social Security, if you're a senior, or the Supplemental Nutrition Program. So using those same kind of avenues to get the money out to individuals. Okay, so hang on, can you please give us some examples of what companies would be taxed? So it would be oil, gas, coal companies, and the fee would be assessed at a natural bottleneck in that industry. So where the oil companies are all selling to the refineries, perhaps. Let's see, what is the cost of administration? Greg, yes, we know that it's a small dollar amount. Initially in the setup year, 1 or 2 years, it will be, I don't know exactly the percentage. I think I'm remembering like 4% or something like that of the total fee collected. And then as the amount of that fee increases every year, the percentage of administration drops. And once the program's set up, it also drops as well. What about using renewable options in the rural electric area? Yes, that's wonderful. Hopefully that's something that this bill begins to facilitate, with people dedicated to finding lower cost energy options. How is the fee charged? So the nice thing about carbon dioxide is we know exactly how much comes out of any particular fossil fuel when we burn it. It's a basic formula, number of carbon atoms in a pile of coal, or a gallon of, or a, whatever of oil. And so it's an easy formula for figuring that out. So the fee is calculated in that way in advance of the fuel being burned. We don't have to wait until the fuel is burned because we know this basic scientific formula. So this is bipartisan, but it actually has been supported by Trump yet, is the question. Is there a plan A and a plan B depending on who is elected in November? Ooh, great question, Fred. But has it? I don't know Trump has any opinion on this. We know he likes to do things in an unpredictable way. Ideally, we would have a veto-proof majority supporting the bill in Congress. And yeah, we're sorting out thoughts about Plan A and Plan B depending on who is elected in November. You're welcome to share that with me or John. We have a staff retreat where we dig into things like this coming up in August. So feel free to share your thoughts to either one of us. Does CCL feel we are making progress about finding a Republican sponsor? Here's the situation. We have the Republican co-sponsors who want to be co-sponsor number 4, 5, and 6. We don't yet have the co-sponsors who are willing to be 2, 3, and 2 and 3. So it's that bit of like, you're at the swimming pool and is the pool water too cold and you're standing on the edge of the pool, like who's going to jump in first? So we're looking for those Republicans willing to be Republican number 2 and 3. And actually in next year, we'll need to find Republican number 1 because Francis Rooney, who's the current Republican co-sponsor, is retiring. Are the revenues taxed? Greg, you're asking me difficult questions. I believe they are, which then makes it so, what is that funny little thing that we need to do with accounting within when you're adding taxes, but they aren't tallied against, like if you're receiving support from the social safety net, they aren't tallied in that. So it's not going to bump you off of SNAP, but it does get taxed. What are the 3 committees of jurisdiction, and does it need to pass through all 3, and why haven't more Republicans signed on? What, John, Stephanie, do either one of you know what the 3 committees are of
I
jurisdiction?
looked this up. Okay, so it is Ways and Means, Foreign Affairs, and Energy and Commerce.
Awesome. And I think it only needs to pass through 1, but I can be corrected on that. Oh yeah, 3. Ingrid says 3. Okay, so we have to get them through them all. Why haven't more Republicans signed on? That's a good question. I think what can we do to help more Republicans sign on is more the way I want to look at that question, and that would be those endorsements, those local leaders. When we look at why did Carlos Curbelo and Representative Ross Layton join early on in the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus? Our volunteers went down before we even had volunteers in Southern Florida. We had a New Jersey volunteer fly himself down to Southern Florida and meet with mayors and chambers of commerce and business people and get their private, quiet endorsement that he carried to Ross Layton and Carlos Curbelo. And hearing from the local influential leaders who a member of Congress considers peers or friends or supporters, that makes a huge difference. So if you're asking, what can I do personally, look at your connections, 7 degrees of separation. Who do you know that is a local leader in some fashion, a respected local leader? And how might you, a university president, lots of our college students go out and get their university presidents to endorse the bill. And can they make a verbal connection with that member of Congress? Can they call the member of Congress up and say, hey, you know, we want you working on this? So that would be the how. Poorer persons often cannot handle money well, so it is questionable if they will adjust and keep up with higher energy bills. So poverty is a challenging issue for anybody, and any one of us who have been there or are right now can attest to that. What we know from economic studies is that when poor people have a little extra money, they buy food. They go to the grocery store more often. They buy a little health care they couldn't afford before. So they take care of those basic needs. That's why economists tell us that this would be a little boost to the economy, because poor people spend that money on essentials that they weren't able to afford before. And yeah, so if you're renting a house, ideally your landlord's going to be doing something to improve the energy efficiency of your house. And what we like to say too is this bill is not the only bill. It is the best first step for Congress to take in solving this problem. And there need to be other bills at the federal level. There need to be laws and initiatives at the state level, localities. Churches are going to need to jump in and say, how do we help poor people insulate homes that they don't own, but they're paying the electrical bills in? So this is a multi-pronged approach, just simply the best first step for Congress to take. The argument I always get from doubters is that the companies will just pass it on. Yep, that's exactly the idea. Then we begin to look in the marketplace at the lower cost items and services. Can you explain the border controls again? The border carbon adjustment says that goods coming from countries that don't have a similar price in carbon will be assessed a fee at the border. And this levels the global playing field for companies. Likewise, goods coming out of the US going to countries without similar carbon pricing will be getting a rebate. We will focus on high carbon, so goods that produce a lot of carbon dioxide when they're being created, highly traded. That means something like steel makes a lot of carbon dioxide when you're making it. Also, a lot of steel goes back and forth across borders. Have there been any pushback from the fact that money is distributed evenly back to families rather than No, people pretty much, there's not a lot of pushback on that. It seems fair to folks across the board on both sides of the political aisle. Yes, you do have to pay taxes. I believe that's right. Some has criticized the bill for not spending revenue on speeding the transition to clean energy. Dividends should therefore go below a certain level. What do you see as a problem with that approach? Like we continue, oops, all right. I gotta stop myself. Our time is up. And let me say that I see there are lots of questions there still. And what I would invite you to do is to go to community, the CCL website, the internal volunteer communications platform website, and look in the forums section. There is forums on all different topics. We have a forum dedicated to the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. Our staff monitor that forum as we do all of them, and we respond quickly. You will likely find answers to your questions. Other people have already posed the same questions in the forum, so you could search. Another place to look is the laser talks, which you can find on the main website in the bottom part, the footer there. Woo! My goodness, I wish I could have gotten to all those questions. All right, so that was a lot to digest. Stephanie, what have you got in store for us next?
Ellie, it's time to dance. Let's get our blood flowing and our cells moving so we can digest all the things we've just heard. We're going to dance to Virginia Beach's own Pharrell Williams. So cue music. Everyone feels so much better. I hope you do too.
Awesome. Very much. Yes. All right. So now let's move on to the 5 levers of political will, those organizing principles that our Texas volunteers developed in 2013. You helped to name the levers earlier in the workshop, so thank you. As we run through these levers, consider which one appeals most to you. And as you sort that out, change your name again. And this time, put the first letter of the lever in the front of your name. Now we've got 3 of them that start with G, so you're gonna have to use 2 letters for those. L for lobbying, M for media, G, R for grassroots, G, T for Grasstops, GD for group development. And we're going to dive into those levers. So Stephanie, if you would, please get us started.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. So first of all, we as citizens lobby our members of Congress. We ask them for what we want to solve the climate crisis in general, and in particular to pass the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. If you join the lobby team, you and a small group of CCL volunteers will hop on virtual meetings with your member of Congress anywhere from 2 to 6 times per year, maybe more. You will get to know your member of Congress and identify ways in which you might move them forward up the ladder for support for the Energy Innovation Act. From time to time, your lobby team may include local leaders who have special influence with their member of Congress. In the process, your team builds long-term relationships with congressional staff and members of Congress. Ellie, what happens in the media lever?
Well, Stephanie, media matters to a member of Congress. They care about what newspapers print and what gets covered on TV. If you join the media team, you will join a crew of folks who write letters to the editor and op-eds and post on social media. You may join your media team in a meeting with the editorial page editors of the local newspaper to seek the newspaper's endorsement of the Energy Innovation Act. A newspaper endorsing the Energy Innovation Act sends a powerful message to a politician. Now, have you ever thought to yourself, wouldn't it be cool if CCL was in the news or the Energy Innovation Act was on the radio? Well, on the media team, you can make that happen in your local media market by reaching out to reporters in your newspaper or on radio stations or on TV and tell them what you are doing in CCL. Stephanie, can you tell us about Grassroots?
Sure. Ellie, constituents like us are the ones who empower and encourage a member of Congress to act. We want our members to understand that every phone call, email, or letter they receive on an issue represents others with the same concern. And a 2019 study from the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication found that 2/3 of Americans, 66%, are at least somewhat concerned about climate change. If you join the Grassroots team, you will work with volunteers who line up speaking events, network at gatherings, now including Zoom gatherings, host virtual house parties, and find other creative ways to talk to more people about the Energy Innovation Act. Prior to the pandemic, you would have secured handwritten letters from constituents seeking leadership from our members of Congress. You'd give those to the lobby team to hand deliver during our face-to-face meetings. These days, our Grassroots crew focuses on recruiting fellow CCL volunteers and friends to call their member of Congress on a monthly basis or send a personalized email via our website. We call this our monthly calling campaign. COVID-19 occupied much of Congress's time this spring. So when we call or email, we thank Congress for their effort, express appreciation for their bipartisan efforts to address the pandemic, and ask them to do the same for climate.
Members of Congress consistently tell us that they need to hear from local respected leaders. Our members of Congress trust these people and turn to them for advice and guidance. Individual voices of local leaders make a disproportionate impact on a member of Congress, and that's why we seek their support as endorsers. If you join the Grasstops team, you will work with volunteers doing various tasks, including researching possible influencers, opening doors to those leaders, building relationships, securing endorsements, and then ultimately nudging those community leaders to speak directly to their member of Congress. We also pay special attention on outreach to local industries and business leaders. Our Business Climate Leaders team engages business leaders and encourages them to advocate for effective federal climate policy.
And a quick shout out to the Grassroots volunteers. When they build community awareness, volunteers working in Grasstops and media have a much easier time with their work. So the Grassroots team really greases the wheels for these other teams.
Yes, that's right. So let's circle back to Grassroots and presentations. If you join the Grassroots team, you will work together with other volunteers who line up presentations, volunteers who give presentations, and volunteers who speak formally or informally to their friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers, giving micro presentations on the bill, including finding creative ways to reach potential supporters online. You will help educate, persuade, and build a vocal majority of citizens that will empower Congress to move forward on climate. Holding all of these levers together, we've got group development, the glue of a CCL chapter. What might it look like if you join this team, Steph?
As part of the group development team, you might help the group leaders with monthly meetings. This team welcomes and orients new volunteers and organizes social gatherings in person or on Zoom. You may call members to check in on projects and remind people of upcoming meetings. And your team might pair new members with old timers who can show the newbies the ropes. Our director, Mark Reynolds, says, "We are betting the ranch on relationships." And that includes the relationships we have with each other. Our work in CCL finds its footing in our core values: focus, optimism, relationships, personal power, integrity, diversity, and nonpartisanship. All of us in CCL help to keep these core values alive in any of the work we are doing in all of the levers.
Let's pause to consider social media. Often we think of social media as part of the media lever, but that's not really the case. Social media functions more like emailing or texting or calling. It's simply a tool that can be used in any of the levers. You might tweet about your member of Congress to exert some leverage on the lobbying lever. You might post in Facebook about your upcoming monthly chapter meeting to recruit new members. A picture on Instagram could highlight a local influencer who is speaking strongly about solving the climate crisis. With social media, some platforms work particularly well with certain levers. So you can keep this in mind as you work in any lever.
And it's important to remember that we're doing all of this good work behind the scenes in order to get substantive federal climate legislation passed. We're hoping you keep this big goal in mind during your breakout discussions. Each action or suggestion we develop should build political will for carbon fee and dividend.
So we've run through the levers. Many of you have added your lever to your name and the front of your name. Let's check with John. So John, do we have everyone matched up with a lever yet?
Not yet. We still have a lot of folks that can add the initials GR, GD, GT, L, or M to the beginning of their name. That way I can put you into a breakout room.
Awesome. And if you're still confused about changing your name, you certainly can put it in the chat, and John will see your note in the chat and he can change your name. And I just want to say, whatever lever you pick today isn't set in stone. Many of us work on more than one lever, and I like working on every single one of the levers. So we've got one more exercise before we head off to our breakout rooms for the levers. So we're going to do an exercise now that will open doors for people to make a bigger contribution to CCL without a lot of worry or effort. So are you up for that? I want to see some thumbs up if you're up for this exercise. Give me a little thumbs up. All right, very good. It's a writing exercise, so I need you to have a piece of paper and a pen. If you don't have that, let's take a quick 5 seconds to go get yourself a pen and a piece of paper. And just hold that up in front of you when you've got that, so I can see that. You've got your piece of paper and a pen. All right, people are getting that. Very good. Take a second, because we will be writing some things good. I see Steve's got his. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to flash you some questions. As I read the questions, I want you to write down the first thing that comes to mind. It's going to go quick, so just write down one phrase, more if you have time. All right, so let's go. Good. So first question is, what do you really care about that brought you to Citizens Climate Lobby and climate change? For me, it's my children, now my grandbaby. It's also a sense that my job is to help restore the relationship between people and the planet. What do you really care about that brought you to CCL and climate change? Write that down. All right, next question. What is one of your passions outside of Citizens Climate Lobby? For me, regenerative agriculture. What is one of your passions outside of Citizens Climate Lobby? All right, next question. What is your special skill or expertise? Okay, so for me, I'm pretty good at writing short things. So that's a skill. I'm good at public speaking. I enjoy that. Pat yourself on the back. Do not be shy with this. What is your special skill or expertise? All right, next question. What other groups do you belong to? Civic, faith, neighborhood, education, professional? I'm a member of the Virginia Association of Biological Farmers. So what other groups do you belong to? All right, next question. Do you like to work solo, with a partner, or in a team? I like all of those. I like to work alone when I'm creating something initially. I like to work with a partner who can give me some feedback on that. And then, as you can see today, I love working in a team when giving a presentation. So how do you like to work? Alone, with a partner, in a team? And then the next question, we're going to look at a checklist on the next page, and I want you to pick 3 activities you might enjoy doing. So let's look at this checklist. I'll read through these. Chatting with strangers and familiar folks, those are kind of 2 different things. You might like one or the other or both. Speaking publicly, at presentation, so giving a presentation or asking a question at a town hall. Writing, you could be writing letters to the editor, letters to Congress, social media posts. Events, planning, hosting, I think those are two different things. I like hosting. Planning is a little harder for me, but I love the hosting part. Designing, flyers, social media. Organizing information, organizing volunteers, doing data entry. I can't stand data entry. And in fact, you are welcome to pick one of these things on this list that you absolutely do not like, and you can write that down. My mom always said we could have one food that we didn't have to eat. Hers was okra, mine was eggplant. Okay, next, research, online related topics, outreach, calling people, emailing, kind of slightly different things. We love it when people like to call. That's a wonderful contribution to a CCL chapter. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Technology, oh, you can see we need help with Zoom these days. Projectors when we get to do in person again. Teaching, skills, knowledge, coaching, networking within a chapter externally. So you pick 3 things and you can pick one thing that you don't like, okra, eggplant, whatever it is. All right, now let's click to that next slide. Now think about expanding your contribution in our work. When you think about all of the things you answered in the questions regarding your skills, interests, affiliations, and circumstances, what is one way you could expand your contribution to CCL that would delight you and move us forward? Go back to the chat and complete this sentence. I might. Complete the sentence. I might. Oh yeah, we could go back to that slide if you want. Go back to slide 40 for people on that. So fill in this sentence. I might, what might you do? I'm gonna fill this in because I am Virginia. I might start a letter to the editor campaign in District 5, which would reach the tiny rural newspapers in our big giant district. Charlottesville, you want to work with me on that? And anybody else in District 5, I'm putting the word out. That's what I want to do. So what would you? I might speak publicly in a community group setting. Nice. I might spread awareness through social media platforms and my personal network. Alan says, good. I might work on research. Sad. Oh, we love that, especially with Grasstops. I might start connecting with chambers of commerce and businesses, Cindy says. I might reach out to green businesses, says John. I might do research and design flyers, Joanna. I might spread the word through social media, plan for future events, network, organize community, write more op-eds, start a local climate group, says John. In Martinsville, woo-woo, we would love to help you start CCL in Martinsville, John. I might chat up friends and family. I might design shareable visual media using CCL information. Host an event, says Nancy. Improve local awareness of climate solutions, says Steve. Rose says explore new outlets for writing about our work. Oh, I love that. Fred says meet other folks in Shenandoah Valley to brainstorm how to approach. Ben Klein, representative, reach out to my church, says Bill. Wonderful. Speaking publicly as a candidate on climate change topics. Oh yes, Laura, wonderful. Might do research, designing social media posts, network. Kelly likes writing articles, volunteer to edit letters to the editor. Nice. Coaching, reach out to churches, says John. Contact members of the county board of supervisors, says Bruce, in Front Royal. Ooh, yeah. Great. Reorganize my chapter to improve effectiveness, says Greg. Create some content for our social media. Chat with strangers, says Megan, and friends and family. Oh, these are great. This is beautiful. I love it. All right. So let's flip back to that slide 61 for us. Feel free to keep popping your ideas into the chat and think about this little exercise. I have it saved as its own mini exercise for you. So you could actually do this on a Zoom meeting for your chapter, and you might not have to do it as quick as I did it. And you could send people to breakout rooms, 2 or 3 people in a breakout room to kind of talk about and do this little fill in the blank I might question. So it is available to you. You're welcome to ask me for the link. Oh, actually, I even have the link right here. I'm going to put this in the chat for y'all. So if anybody wants to adopt this as a little exercise in your chapter, here is the mini slide deck for what we just did. And so Stephanie, we are almost ready for the lever breakout rooms, but what do you have before us before we head there?
Ellie, I think it's time for another dance break. Let's get up and move and dance together to Charlottesville's own Dave Matthews Band. So everybody up, if you haven't danced to Dave Matthews, your children have or your parents have, and now you will too. So, in a moment, we are going to the breakout rooms, and we'll generate a whole lot of creative, ambitious ideas. Some of them may be just right for your situation, but let's remember the core activities that are most important before we get too fancy. When in doubt, focus on these activities. Grow your chapter, strengthen your liaison connection with your member of Congress, prioritize grassroots and Grasstops outreach, and keep spreading the word through media.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. All right, so I'm going to pause our recording here. All right, there we go. We're doing the lever report, so lobbying.
Cool. Well, there was a lot of ideas we had in our group and some highlights. Patricia had a good point about town hall events and the importance of having someone from CCL to be there and ask these climate questions in front of a crowd, and how sometimes we don't always hear about these events in time. So having a designated, task force of tracking town hall events and making sure we can get members there present. And with our new Virginia-wide Slack team, that's a really good mechanism that we can start leveraging to do that. We also talked about helping liaisons by group leaders can encourage other volunteers to act like support buddy systems for our liaisons, to not just have liaisons be out there all on their own. So maybe like a consistent lobby team or liaison support team of volunteers. The monthly calling campaign as well. Meredith talked about keeping the messaging fresh and topical to really help all our volunteers that are on the monthly calling campaign to keep having good, new, fresh and topical, current related points to bring up. Yeah, those are the highlights, I'd say.
Beautiful. Yeah, lovely. Wonderful. Very, very strategic too. I'm glad to hear that. Nice work, lobby breakout room folks. All right, so media, Chris Wiegart. So Chris, if you'll unmute and give us a report for media.
Thank you, Ellie. Okay, well, I didn't manage our time superbly, but we did have a short list of concepts that we wanted to pursue. One, we thought that using Slack could really improve our media performance by sharing tasks and building teams. But in that same vein, we thought it might be helpful to actually have a volunteer step up to be a media coordinator for Virginia. And that could be just a print media coordinator to work on op-eds and LTEs, or it could be an overall media coordinator to include social media. There was a suggestion that some people aren't sure what to do with media work, and it could be helpful to offer periodic training or best practices sessions on Zoom. And then the suggestion was made to partner with other green groups on media work, because sometimes it seems like we get a competitive situation with other green groups that their attitude towards CCL can be, well, you don't want to help me, so I don't want to help you. So that could be something to try to overcome.
Nice. So I love so far what we're hearing is a little bit about the levers interrelating to each other. You're describing media that also incorporates what we call Grasstops coalition building in working with the other green organizations. So these are not quite silos that function completely independently. They definitely are more like trees in a forest with their roots talking to each other, and the microbes talking to each other, connecting and working together. Beautiful, beautiful on media. All right, so let's do Grassroots next. So Emily, if you'll unmute and give us a report on Grassroots.
Hey, everybody. We had a nice conversation. We missed tabling. We've talked mostly about doing presentations for various groups and how that is a good way to connect with people during this time of physical distancing. And we talked about some ideas about how to connect with various groups who are open to having presentations. We talked about, let's see, it was so whirlwind. I can't remember who said this, but somebody in our group talked about they're getting ready to give a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce in their area, which is awesome. And I know that our newly formed conservative group, that's something they want to focus on, is connecting with different various, areas, chambers of commerce. We talked a lot about connecting with faith-based groups. A lot of people have come to CCL through their churches. And we talked about giving presentations to your faith group. We talked about tailoring presentations based on who your audience is. Like talking about if you're talking to health professionals or people who are interested in the health effects of climate change, making the connections with the COVID crisis and the climate crisis. We talked about the importance of talking about the connections between environmental justice and racial justice. And one of our members, Joy, said, this is different from presentations, changing the subject. She likes to, since we're not getting to connect very much right now, she likes to wear her message on her t-shirt when she does go out, which I thought was a great idea. And we all need to be wearing our CCL t-shirts out and about in the world so we can start conversations about CCL and carbon fee and dividend. I thought that was a great idea. Yeah. Nan, did I miss anything? Oh, so that's a great idea, Sarah. We need some CCL face masks, it says in the chat. We sure do. Ask me about carbon pricing.
Right. I think you hit everything, but the importance is, and when we can get back to real events and in-person events, of course we want to, tying in with Earth Day next year and farmers markets and community activities and family-based activities. So everybody can get involved and have real interactive events. Those are very important for engaging people.
Awesome.
Oh, we also talked about, someone asked me about our connections with other green groups, and I talked a little about the Environmental Voter Project that we're doing, the pairing with the Environmental Voter Project. So maybe I'll try to throw something about that in the chat.
Perfect. Love it. Great job, Grassroots. Very nice. Good. Okay, so now Grasstops, Pete and his team. Grasstops, Pete. Oh, I'm going to unmute you. Hang on. I gotcha, I think. Hang on.
There we go. Now can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Yeah, our number one was working with chambers of commerce because of how many Grasstops people would be in that audience, whether it's a presentation or whether it's networking within that group. And I think Cindy mentioned something about that earlier today, and George said that he wants to support her in that, although he's super busy with other things. The second thing we talked about was how central personal relationships are when you're trying to develop community Grasstops people. And I just gave a couple of examples in Blacksburg of how the two Grasstops people that we had in our lobby meeting in June were both a result of personal relationships, one that I had and one that someone who came to one of our meetings had with, kind of very respected leaders in our community, and how those people probably wouldn't have taken the initial meetings with us without just being our friends or someone that we had a history with. So I really encourage people when they're thinking about Grasstops to just look at who is in your network that you know that you might reach out to. And the third idea that's related to personal relationship is LinkedIn and social media, using the resources in LinkedIn to talk with, my opinion is the way you use LinkedIn is with someone you do have a good relationship with, like an existing Grasstop supporter, go to their LinkedIn page and see who their connections are and who they could introduce us to. We also talked about 3 other quick ideas. Well, I mean, all 6 of these ideas are great ideas. We had trouble boiling it down to 3, but how Republicans might not be as interested in some of the environmental issues that we are in the same way anyway, but they would be very interested in stimulating industry, and especially the renewable energy industry. And the other thing that's about, in terms of appealing to Republicans, is talking about how this being the whole issue of climate change and all the economic opportunities involved in fixing climate change, that it's an international competition, and talking about how we want America to kind of win that competition, if you will. So that's what we did, and it went by very fast.
It does. Wonderful. Great report from Grasstops. Very good. And then our glue, Sarah, with chapter development. So Sarah, if you would unmute.
Thanks. So yeah, we had kind of a broad-ranging, freewheeling discussion, I think, as befits the nature of chapter development. But you know, we talked a lot about the challenges in the current era, and also the opportunities with social distancing, and how this is a really good time to make personal phone calls to all of our members, or texts, whatever you're comfortable with. Some people respond to text better than calls, some to calls better than text. And we talked about how it could be helpful and encourage more people to get involved in that effort if we developed a script. And actually, Rita has done that in her chapter, so she's gonna share that, and we can get that out to people. Another thing that came up was how these Zoom meetings in some ways have enabled more people to attend, and been easier to get to. So perhaps that's something that we need to consider continuing even after the pandemic is over. Although it'll be good to mix it up with some in-person events as well. We talked about Slack and how if we can ramp up the use of that could really help, to keep people engaged and involved. We also talked a lot about just, maybe trying a little more intentionally to reach out to the people we know, and to reach out to other groups that we're involved in, kind of diverse groups, and build more relationships there, and find ways to collaborate. Andrea already had an idea about a film festival her chapter could get involved in. And we talked about, the need to reach out to youth, and the opportunities of, maybe trying to, get volunteers from high schools, and collaborate with teachers in order to be able to do some presentations or things like that.
Nice. Very good. Very good report. Wonderful reports from all the levers. Oh, wonderful. So just so you all know that the folks who led these lever breakout rooms are going to stick around after the workshop ends for another 45 minutes to parse through the notes and sort out some thinking and prioritize and sort out our next steps collectively as a state. So these threads will continue to be woven together. What I'd love to do in these we got about 8 minutes left, is turn again to the chat. And I'd like to hear, is there anything anybody wants to celebrate a bit? Something that, an insight or a highlight from the workshop today? in general, any favorite moments. If there's something in particular that, you know, we filled in that I might, whatever, and you guys sort of expounded that on in your breakout room, is there something really calling you that you want to claim right here and sort of say in front of other folks to celebrate that? Let's go to the chat and share a little bit that way. So favorite moments, something that inspired you, something you're wanting to keep forward, moving forward as your own particular thread. And let's turn to the chat here for a minute, and I'm going to look and see what people are writing. So, favorite moments, insights, highlights, commitments. Gave me a great new list of things to do, Greg. I'm really intrigued about the possibilities of working with the Environmental Voter Project. I no longer feel alone. Yay. I don't know that GT is the right fit for me. I want to make some environmental t-shirts now. Be aware that Sally Newkirk is running for the board. I've enjoyed how well organized this whole presentation has been, and efficiently and interestingly, you covered a huge amount. Thank you. Impressed with everyone's commitment and appreciate that we are all in this together. So many great ideas, great introduction to CCL. I plan to join the Blacksburg chapter as a result of this workshop. Yay, Bill. Stephanie, everyone said, Bonnie says, thank you, Stephanie, for introducing us to Slack. I was skeptical, but no longer. Try it. My favorite moment is there another Blacksburg person here I didn't meet yet, says Ingrid. Inspiring to learn about the federal legislation, Laura. Wonderful. Thank you so much for giving me an option to interact with great-minded people in CCL. I would love to wear environmental t-shirts now, says Hina. Impressed with everyone's talents. Feel better with new things. Oh, there's our Slack. There's the Slack, my friends. It's right there. Stephanie put that in the chat, so you can click on that. I'll contact the head of the Chamber of Commerce. Oh, I love that action item already. There's a Slack tutorial, getting a CCL t-shirt today. It's been great for me to learn more about CCL's work and connect with others throughout Virginia. Oh, beautiful. I want more of this, says John. There is going to be more, John. So what we're gonna do is we also have a sort of project planning workshops. So you've got these great ideas. Some of them are like easy, next step, I'm going to join the chapter. Great, next step, easy to do. Others are a little more complex and may require some collaborating with people or partnering. Like the Chamber of Commerce, you might want to do some strategic thinking about that in advance and pull a bit of a team together. And is it just for my town, or am I going to work, you know, a little bit more broadly in the district? Whatever. If you're thinking along those sort of strategic ideas, something that requires some steps that you need to articulate and a bit of a team to pull together, we're going to be doing a project planning clinic, a little weekend activity. We are developing this as a pilot right now. We tried it with Wyoming. We're going to do New York State in the next week or so. And so we will come back to you all later in August. We'll sort out a date with your state coordinators and the flow team. We'll let the rest of you guys know to join up with that and to help flesh out your project. So it's something that I started doing when I thought, I want to do letters to the editor in District 5. What would that look like? I took myself through that little project planning workshop as we were developing it, and it helped me to picture who am I going to work with on this, and how many letters to the editor and whatnot. So keep your eyes out for that invitation to a project planning clinic. It will be similar to what we've just experienced today, a couple of hours on a Saturday, breakout rooms, whatnot. You will actually wind up with your goals written out, your next steps, your partners, something, a little action plan you can work on. So that'll be in August. We're nailing down the date on that. And what else? Let me make sure I got what we want to do. Oh, the other thing we want to do here is it is time for a picture. And since we are not gathering on the steps of some little place, we're going to sit at our computer. If you don't want your picture, then just stop your video. But if you're okay with being in the picture, then we want you to smile and wave. And John is going to take our picture. It's going to take him a minute because he's got to go through a couple of screens. So smile, cheese, levers, low, CCL. Oh, that makes a nice smile. And John will tell us when he's done. Good.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right. So, Ingrid, if you would take us to that last slide, I'm going to turn it over to your regional coordinator, John Clark, to wrap things up for us. So, John.
Yeah, so before I send you all on your way to do amazing things throughout the state, I want to thank our team today for this flow workshop. Thank you to our team presenters, Ellie and Stephanie, and to our Levers team, Ingrid, Sarah, Emily, Chris, and Pete. Also, I want to thank all of you for coming today and invite you to our Southeast Appalachia Virtual Regional Conference coming up on August 22nd. And volunteers in Knoxville, Tennessee area work super hard to put this conference together, and it shows. There's 3 different tracks of breakout sessions as well as excellent keynote planned. Registration is now open, and you can find the registration page under the Regional and State Conferences tab under the Get Active tab of our citizensclimatelabbey.org website. And I want to end on this quote from Arthur Ashe. He was born in Richmond, Virginia. Arthur Ashe became the first and remains the only African-American male tennis player to win the US Open and Wimbledon singles titles. He was also the first African-American man to earn the #1 ranking in the world and the first to earn induction into the Tennis Hall of Fame. Arthur Ashe is also an activist. He worked to end apartheid in South Africa and raise awareness for AIDS after contracting the disease from a blood transfusion. In 1992, he was arrested in a demonstration protesting the US treatment of Haitian refugees at the time. And he spent a good part of his life in service of others. I love this quote from Ashe. True heroism is remarkably sober, very undramatic. It is not the urge to surpass all others at whatever cost, but the urge to serve others at whatever cost. I think this fits with how I see CCL volunteers. Writing letters to the editor, calling and meeting with members of Congress, tabling at markets and festivals to get stacks of constituent comment forms may seem like undramatic work, but it's the necessary work of true climate heroes. Heroes building the political will for those who have the power to act to protect our climate and the future of all life on Earth. And I want to thank you all for doing this heroic work. So take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks, John.
John. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good meeting.